locally owned. I'm from Amsterdam, so they can expect good football food, baseball food, pizza, wings, and beer. You know, you can bring your kids in, and, you know, they can play pool or play the video games, or they can sit with you and watch TV too, because you got the TVs in every dining room. It's such a place that you can come in with your family and sit down. And again, it's family oriented because it's family owned. When you walk in here, it's like a TV show, Cheers. Everybody knows your name, and you can expect that from in here because everybody knows everybody else.
The Sideline Guys are back here at sidelineguys.recordernews.com. With Michael Kelly, I'm Adam Schinder. Good to be back with you, as we're brought to you, as always, by our friends at Crystal Ristorante, 72 Alliance Street here in Amsterdam. And as of last night, we basically hit the halfway point of the league schedule all around the area in high school basketball.
Right, it was a tough night for the Amsterdam boys last night, a good night for the Amsterdam girls. Let's start with the boys, because you were there, dropping that one to Schenectady. I guess, what did you see from the Running Rams?
I mean, this Amsterdam team was coming in really off one of their toughest games of the entire season, Friday night against Troy, when they lost by 66 points to a team that, frankly, just size-wise, athleticism-wise, they were outmatched against. But then they came out against Schenectady, led them 9-5 after the first quarter. It was a 7-point Schenectady lead at the half. But Amsterdam comes out, Gio Rodriguez hits a three-pointer to start the second half, and from that, it just all fell apart. Eventually, a 60-30 loss. Is just nothing really on the offensive end of the court went right. They really had trouble holding on to the ball against Schenectady's really kind of unique. The old Joe Loudis' son, Eric Loudis, their head coach, running that strange 3-2 matchup zone.
Right, that's kind of been the way of this season for Amsterdam. They'll have their good moments, but those bad moments, they'll get rolling down a hill, and they can't stop themselves. You know, I'm really tough also bouncing back from that Troy game, like you were saying. It's a team that they were just completely size-wise overmatched with going into that Schenectady game. The girls, though, with a nice bounce back from their tough loss to Troy last Friday as well, on the road for them. Yeah, definitely good. This was a one that this Amsterdam team had to win against Schenectady, seeing as their three senior players, Monique and Dominique Pucci and Maria Lafont, all transfers from Schenectady. They ended up going to Schenectady, beating them 67-31. And for a team that came close to beating a very good Troy team last Friday night at home, this was the kind of win they can use as kind of a springboard for the second half of their season. Right, I mean, like you said, this was the conclusion of the first half of that Big Ten season. They start over now. That Amsterdam girls team has a chance to maybe move up into that third or fourth spot in the Big Ten by the time this is done. Right now, they're in that fourth or fifth spot. Maybe they can move up one or two. Yeah, Big Ten really very jumbled. You've got Albany as a clear number one, but behind them, Catholic Central, Troy, Amsterdam, Bishop McGinn. Amsterdam still hasn't played Bishop McGinn. They'll play them twice in the second half of the season, but that's really, those four teams are really in a jumble for that second through fifth spot in the league. Right, and I mean, like we were saying, I mean, the girls, that tough loss to Troy was because Troy has been one of the best teams in the Big Ten, and the Amsterdam girls should have won that game. So, you know, I think that combined with this result from last night, really positive for the Lady Rams moving forward. Now let's swing over to the Colonial Council, both the Fauna Fultonville boys and girls in action Tuesday night. Really, again, in terms of a matchup, not a great matchup for either one of them. The boys at Watervliet, the girls hosting Watervliet, and on the boys and girls sides, Vliet is really the class of the Colonial Council this year. Right, I mean, the boys Canyoneers number 5 in the state, the girls are number 2 in the state, so it was going to be a long night for Fauna Fultonville in both areas. I mean, looking at that girls game, they lose by 20, but I mean, that was really competing with this number 2 team in the state. They've gone to the sectional final 5 years in a row. I think that was, even though it's a loss and it's a lopsided loss, that's a step forward for the Lady Braves to play Watervliet as close as anybody else has this year. I mean, that's a young team. That's a team that really, they got the senior leadership in Alyssa Craig, but Wendy Waters has been seeing her younger players develop, and that's something that they're going to need. And this was a team that rode the highest of highs really for 6-7 straight years when they were in the WAC. They've had a tough time over the past couple of years. Really kind of had the perfect storm for them. They graduated a ton of talent right before they went into the Colonial Council. But now you can see they are starting, at the very least, to get that groove going, and hopefully for them, and get a couple of signature wins as the season moves on. Right. I mean, that's what the boys are looking for too, is a couple of signature wins. In the Colonial, they're under 500 this year. I think they were hoping to be more competitive with Watervliet than they were last night, losing by 25. You figure maybe that's a 15-point game. They'd probably be not happy, but they take it. Going to the second half of that year, I know that that team is looking for consistent intensity, especially on the defensive end of the court.
Yeah, and that's really what's happened with the Braves each of the last few years, especially last year. They went in December out to Watervliet and got just taken to the house. Then they came back. Watervliet came to Fonda late in the season, much tighter game, and by the end of the season, the Braves were with Watervliet into the fourth quarter of the Section 2 Class B title game in Glens Falls.
Right, and I guess kind of now moving to the WAC, where a bunch of local teams are playing, and so far this year, both on the boys and the girls side, Canajohary's been the class of that WAC North, and Fort Plain, again, on both sides, has been kind of the surprise in both divisions.
Yeah, and it looks like it may be coming down to next week. Both of those teams will meet again for the second time. They play early in the WAC North schedule on both sides, both halves of the season. So there could be plenty that shuffles out. But it looks like both both boys and girls Canajoharie Fort Plain games, those could very well decide the WAC North title, decide seeding for the WAC Cup later in the season, and be big in determining seeding for the Section 2 Class C playoffs. For the Canajoharie boys, they've come out. They had a tough game a couple of weeks ago in their holiday tournament against Johnstown. But in the league, this team has really been the class of the WAC North.
Right, nobody's really come close to them. Nobody's really touched them. If you look at their games against the other top teams in the league, they beat Saratoga Catholic by 30. The only team that's really played them close has been Fort Plain, who Canajoharie beat by 7 at Fort Plain. And a little bit more about that game Tuesday. There's actually an outside chance, if things break just right for Canajoharie this week, that they actually could clinch the WAC North with the win next week against Fort Plain.
And when you look at the Fort Plain boys, that team has had some really, really nice. They've played a very tough schedule. This is a team that's played. They've gone out. They've played Hoosick Falls. They've played Cooperstown over the holidays, one of the best Class C teams in the state. This is a team that graduated a lot of guys from a team that won the WAC last year, but they've got a good senior leader in Harold Detmer who's really making things go for head coach Casey Russell in his first year.
Right, and those games against those tough teams has really helped this team grow, especially when playing its WAC schedule. They went out, they played Cooperstown, who was ranked 3rd in the state at the time that they played them. It's really shown in the juniors on this team as the season has gone on. A lot more confidence for them, just a lot more of a contribution at the beginning of the season, where it was mostly Harold Detmer, and then what else are we going to get? Now there's 3 or 4 guys stepping up every game for that Hilltoppers team.
Now on the girls' side, talking about a team that's had people step up, the Fort Plain Lady Hilltoppers for Phil Carker really have had 2 players step up on a team that had very, very little to know what they were going on this year. But Haley Kilmartin and Abby Boyer have really stepped up to make this a very dangerous team in the WAC North.
Right, and talking to Phil Carker recently, he didn't even try to sugarcoat it and say that he knew this was going to happen. He just said, I had no idea, that these 2 girls were going to step up and be as good as they were, especially this year as sophomores. But they have. Their one loss in the league is to Canajoharie, who's undefeated so far in league play. Really impressive year so far for Lady Hilltoppers.
And you switch over to talk about Canajoharie for just a second. That team really, it's going as Mackenzie Staller and Alicia Stetton going. When Mackenzie Staller is going, she's a threat, and she hasn't done it yet, but she's a threat to put up a triple-double on any given night.
Right, she's actually, I'll one-up you, she's a threat for a quadruple-double with her steals and her assists. Putting her at the top of that 1-2 full-court press that they do, she creates a lot of havoc in the passing lanes at the top. She gets 4 or 5 steals a game herself. She probably causes another 5 or 6 turnovers with teams throwing it to her teammates or out of bounds trying to keep it away from her.
And then just quickly swing over Broad Alban Perth. The Patriot boys, really tough time so far this year. They'll have probably their best chance so far. They wrap up their first half of the league schedule tomorrow night, Thursday night. They get Hudson Falls at home.
Right, Hudson Falls, another team they also have not won a game this year. Might be BP's best chance over the next couple of games to break that losing streak. You really want to break it sooner or later, because if it keeps going, it's going to be harder and harder to break because of maybe confidence not being where it needs to be.
And the BP girls right now, they're going as Caitlin Wood goes, and she's going very well.
Right, yeah. Every single game it's a double-double for her, putting up 20 points, 15 rebounds, it seems, every night. That's a team, once they get a consistent number 2 and number 3 score, they can make a nice sectional run if they're able to find that.
We're running up on time here, but very quickly, midway point of the season, boys and girls, coach and player of the year.
I'll start with the boys, and for Canajoharie, player of the year, Ryan Hodge. He's been doing it all year. The coach, Casey Russum, who in his first year back has that Hilltoppers team playing very hard.
All right, for the boys, I'm going to go with. I also have to agree. I'll go with Rick Palumbo at Canajoharie for the Player of the Year. I'll go over to Fort Plain for my Player of the Year. Harold Detmer, I think, has really stepped up into the leadership role. For the girls, Player of the Year right now is Caitlin Wood for me, and Coach of the Year, go with Phil Carker. Done a great job over at Fort Plain.
Right, I'm going to second Phil Carker. I'm going to go with Mackenzie Stoller for Girls Player of the Year, though Caitlin Wood's a very, very close second.
So far, so good for all of them. We'll see how it wraps up as the season goes on. Until then, for Michael, I'm Adam with the Sideline Guys, and we'll see you next time at sidelineguys.recordernews.com.